Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. Cricut recently released a line of permanent markers and they come in a few different colors right now. I'm hoping they release more colors in the future. Now these were released with Cricut Venture, however they'll work in your Explore series or Maker series machine, and I'm going to use them in all three types of machines today on a few different materials. So these work on paper, they work on vinyl, they work on that smart label material. I seriously think they would work on like sticker paper. I'm just going to try it on 3 different materials today, but any place that you can write with a permanent marker, you can use these in your Cricut machine. So the only machines you can't use these with are with the Cricut Joy. Otherwise, you can use these in your machine to make tons of projects. So let's first take a look at the markers and then see how to use them in a variety of machines. These are the Cricut Permanent Markers. So this is the black pack and this is the pack of colors that are out right now. It's blue, green, and red in this pack. So as you might be able to tell, these are a bit different from the regular Cricut markers. So here is the permanent marker and here are the regular Cricut markers. So there is a significant size difference, and then the tips are different as well. So what I'm going to do is put the permanent marker into my Cricut machine so you can see how it goes in, because it does go in a little bit differently than the regular Cricut markers. Here I have my Cricut Explorer 3 and I'm adding the permanent marker inside. So what you're going to have to do is you are going to have to remove the adapter from the A clamp. Just open the clamp and press from the bottom and that adapter should pop right out. This is no matter if you're using Explore series, Maker series, or Cricut Venture. Then you just put the Cricut permanent marker in place and you just make sure it drops all the way down. So there is a rim around the marker and it will stop itself. Make sure the marker's all the way down, then close clamp A. And now you're ready to both draw and cut with the Cricut permanent marker. So here I am in Design Space and I'm just going to make an example project. So here I'm just picking a font. Now I tried some different fonts with this and here I'm picking a font that I use for engraving mostly. And I am going to show you how those might work and might not in a second. So it worked on paper, but it didn't work on vinyl. So just note that and keep watching this video to see why it did not work. And I'm gonna have my Cricut machine cut this like it's a label. So I went ahead and drew a box as well. So I have a cut and then I'm gonna change the words to a draw. So I want it to draw the words and then cut around the box. I went ahead and centered that up and then I clicked attach. So that attaches those two together so it will draw and then just cut around that box. And then I went ahead and clicked make it and pick 2 copies. And I'm gonna do this a few different ways. So I'm gonna do this on my Explore machine, my Maker machine, and I'm actually gonna do a different project on my Venture. So let's head to those machines and see how this works. So here I am on my Explore machine using the smart label material. I am gonna use a different material with each machine just to show how versatile these markers are. I did some experiment with this smart label material. I did it on a mat, off a mat, and I'll show you those experiments in a minute. But here it is off the mat, and I'm using a Cricut font. And I have it set as writing, so it kind of draws an outline around the font. And we will get into a bit more about why that's important in a minute. It goes ahead and draws, then it cuts around those labels. Once I remove it from the machine, it's done. And note, it did not smear, it looks amazing, and it's completely dry to the touch at this point. This is the Smart Writable Label material from Cricut, so let's try just regular Cricut permanent vinyl. So here I have my Maker 3 and just some pink vinyl on the mat. This is Cricut Permanent Vinyl. I am convinced these pens will work with any permanent vinyl. I went ahead and did the same type of label with this. So the word flower, and I cut around it with a rectangle. Again, inserted the permanent marker in the same manner. This time the material is on a mat, but I didn't find that made a difference. The font is basically what made a difference, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Again, it writes and then cuts around that square. And then I go ahead and remove it from the machine. Again, the marker is perfectly dry, it doesn't smear, and it's ready to apply to whatever surface I would like to use it on. Then we're gonna head to the Cricut Venture. This time I'm gonna use paper, and I am gonna use a SVG file that I will have for free in the description below this video. So it is an SVG file, and I tried that engraving font on this paper and it worked perfectly. So the engraving font does work in certain situations. I am gonna show you another situation where it didn't work as well. So here I used that engraving font as part of an SVG file with some florals and just drew it on a piece of the 24 by 28 inch Cricut cardstock. So yes, this is a huge sheet of paper in the Cricut Venture. However, if you want to use paper in your Explore series or Maker series machine, that would work as well. So I went ahead and drew this entire thing and then removed it. Now here I'm using the blue permanent marker, but you could definitely use any color you would like. along with any color of cardstock. They have a huge wide variety of colors in this huge cardstock. So if you have the Venture machine, get ready to make those huge posters with Cricut Permanent Markers. So here are the projects that I completed. So first of all, we have the Venture on the cardstock. Again, it came out great. Now the engraving font where it's kind of filled worked great in this case. However, it's so large, it does look like stripes. So in this case, with it so large, the lines do not overlap, so it doesn't make like a permanently filled font. These two cases, Smart Label and just a permanent vinyl, I did an outline font with those and they look really great. Again, they were dry right out of the machine. Now I did try this Smart Label a couple different ways, on the mat and no mat, with that filled engraving font that I used on the paper. In this case, the pen overlaps and it just doesn't have enough time to dry before that machine moves because it overlaps so quickly. So I did have quite a bit of streaking, no matter if it was on the mat or without a mat. If you're using it on permanent vinyl or the Smart Label material, I would be careful of your font choice. However, if you're using it on paper, it did not seem to matter. So the font choice mattered less because the marker dries quicker on the paper. So just be aware that it might be your font if you have any streaking issues. So no matter if you want to make huge poster boards or if you want to make labels, you can now make them with a permanent marker from Cricut. So I really love these markers. The only thing, like I said, I had to be careful of is which font I picked, especially on the Smart Label or the permanent vinyl material. Some of those engraving fonts just did not dry enough before like the Cricut machine ran back over them, and I had a few streaking issues. So if you're having streaking issues, take a look at your file, your font, that type of thing. Just make sure that it's drying before the Cricut machine moves back over it. With this type of block font, I had zero issues. The Cricut machine actually went over this twice while it worked, and I had no issues with it streaking. So as long as it dries enough before the Cricut machine like moves back over it, it is not a problem. So the Cricut fonts work better for me on the things like the label and the vinyl. Can you find like a filled font that would work on these? You might be able to. I would just kind of experiment, play around, do some like tests, just kind of like a couple letters in the corner or something, see if it works, then do a larger project, see how it works for you. You may find that they work fine. And again, those fonts worked fine for me on paper, so I do think if you're doing a paper project, you're fine to choose whatever font, whatever file you would like. So hopefully this helped you. If it did, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions about Cricut Permanent Markers, drop down in the comment section, ask away. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.